Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
My name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go.
You're very reticent to say "here we go" recently, so maybe we just need to change that up. I don't know. It to me it's very comforting. I like the beginnings and endings of our podcast to be the same, but that's just me being that kind of structural person where it's I can always count on the beginning of the podcast being exactly the same, but I know that probably bugs you.
Okay, you ready? My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
Let's do it.
No, you do your part. Go ahead.
This is in the podcast.
Yeah, I know it is. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm not editing it.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. Do your part.
Oh, okay. All right, and I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go.
Well, I'm gonna have to edit that because I'm sure that was overmodulated. So, anyway, how has it been over the last weekend? Let's say, what have you been doing?
Well, you know what I've been doing. So I've been doing the show. The show opened on Friday night of last week, and it went really well.
Got good reviews, I saw.
Yes, the one review is good so far. We're still waiting for the one major paper, if you will. And who knows what this guy's going to say. But at least there's one good review. You know what I mean? So if they all suck, at least one's good. And that one is very good. So, it went really well. Opening nights are very strange. I have small milestones that get me through it. I have a 3-minute monologue in this play where I stand on stage all by myself and talk directly to the audience. And it happens a couple of times throughout the play that myself in particular does it, but other characters do it too. So it's nerve-wracking because you're not hiding behind talking to somebody else. You're talking directly to the audience. Strangely enough, the opposite happened. It made me come alive in a way I had not predicted.
Wow.
I actually quite enjoyed it. And that was my mini milestone for opening night, as long as my monologue went well, beginning, middle, and end, because it is a very complexly simple monologue. It's very, very simple, but it's got all these complexities to it. So I wanted to hit some things, and I came off stage and had a little bit of a mini breakdown in a good way. That I was just happy that I got through it. And the cast was backstage during my monologue, and they were all there, and they all felt it too. So that was worth the price of admission for me. So it's going well. We've got it coming up tomorrow night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and matinee on Sunday, and all the way till the 16th. So it should be interesting. Plays evolve, and sometimes they will backpedal. And sometimes you can backpedal, and sometimes it's hard to muster up what you've accomplished so far. And sometimes it's good just to let that go and try something new. I think that's the reason why the opening Here We Go for the podcast is different, because I like to try different things. Some things work, some things don't. I would say the majority of things that I choose to do as an actor don't work, but that's okay because they keep coming to me. They keep coming to me, and eventually one or two will stick. And there's a few things that have worked out for this show. So, yes, I am not burned out, but just ready to relax and not have anything to do at night, and that hasn't happened for a couple of weeks. That's not a complaint. That's just a statistical update of my physical well-being. But overall, it went really well. I'm happy. The cast is great. The director's super nice. The theater is so great. They're supportive, and it's literally underground in a parking garage, so it's as independent as you could possibly get. It's called the Generic Theater of Norfolk, so it is as generic as you can get. But they try these complex plays, and this one it's complex. And
well, isn't this play based on a Chekhov play?
It is. The Seagull, yes. It's based on that. And if you remember from the review, it talks about how it brings the cast down by half. There's only 7 versus 14. There's only 2 love triangles versus, I think, 4. So, yeah, it's an updated version, but it's also this meta theatrical thing where we're well aware that you're in the audience, and we actually call out to that. You know, hey, you with your Playbill, we can hear you. Can you stop doing that? That kind of stuff for real. And
That's
there's
cool.
room for there's room for improv by the lead actor, and he's fantastic at it. So he has to ask people certain things, and whatever his response is where it goes from there, or what their response is. So and I get the privilege of sitting backstage every night listening to it, wondering what people are going to say. And people say some strange stuff, and you think, oh, they're just being clever, they're just being witty, or they're finally getting to speak back. You know, you're in a movie, in a play, and you think, don't go in there. Oh, he's behind you. Oh, you should have said this. This is the play where you can do it at. And so it's a lot of fun to sit backstage, but I always kind of sit backstage and listen anyway. I feel like this is a short period of time that we do this in, and the more I get to hear these words, the better off as a human being I feel like I am. And so overall, so far so good.
Well, great. All right. Well, me not as I mean, it wasn't as an amazing of a week. I didn't co-star in any plays or anything, but I did get to see 2001: A Space Odyssey in IMAX, and that
Crazy.
was really cool. I knew that they were re-releasing it, but I didn't know they were doing an IMAX re-release of it. It's the 4K restoration. It's not the fancy 70 millimeter Christopher Nolan unfixed version or whatever they call it. So yes, it's been doctored or whatever since 1968. But the transfer is beautiful. The sound was pristine and loud, and it was interesting. I spent a lot of my time trying to dissect a lot of the special effects, and trying to see if I could nitpick, with 2018 eyes, a movie from 50 years ago. And there were only a handful of scenes where I could kind of see ooh, that's a model, or ooh, the lighting's kind of harsh on that, or, little things, like dirt on the floor and stuff that I'm sure they were just maybe hadn't paid much attention to, but they also might not have expected it to be on a 70-foot screen either. Although it did play, I mean, it was shot in Cinerama. It was shot in 70 millimeter, like ultra wide, and so and I'm sure they played it at the Cinerama Dome, like in LA, and they had a few throughout the country where it was kind of those domed theaters that had the really, really wide aspect ratios and stuff that they could handle. And I'm sure it was still impressive back then, but I thought it was probably as close as I will ever get to see it as somebody would have seen it 50 years ago. And I mean, it was something to behold. It was pretty cool. I have more respect for it. That movie's a Kubrick movie that I don't go back to very often, and it happened to line up exactly right in my ever prolonged Kubrick marathon. I started with Killer's Kiss, and I was at the point where I needed to see 2001: A Space Odyssey, so it lined right up. So so next is A Clockwork Orange. So I'm looking forward to that one. It's been a few years since I've seen that one. So, and met a fan of our podcast, Matt, and I ended up going with Justin Arner, who's been a guest of ours. And actually, this is a good time to bring up our next episode, which is historic. It's episode 200. And we've decided to do something we've never done before. And we're each going to run down our top 10 favorite movies of all time. And I know I want to be very specific that these are our favorite movies of all time. They're not like the Sight and Sound best movies of all time or the AFI list of 100 greatest movies of all time. These are my favorites. So back up off, yo.
Yeah, I love how you always have to give a disclaimer to something, even if you thought they were the best movies of all time. That would be okay. You're entitled to your opinion. First, I find it fascinating to see a movie in a theater that you've only been able to watch on DVD or on your TV, no matter how big your TV is. I was a big fan of The Big Chill, and living back in Norfolk now, they have a independent movie theater called The Narrow, and they got this great video store which I think we've talked about actually. Anyway, they always show just a variety of different things throughout the year, and they'll just re-release a film that I've never seen. I saw Wizard of Oz there. I saw The Big Chill. I saw Clockwork Orange. I saw Quadrophenia. Now, Quadrophenia and Clockwork Orange were back in the day when they were actually released around the time that they were released, maybe a couple years later. The Hunger, just a whole bunch of films that I had never seen on the big screen, and it's always fascinating to go see in its own element. Normally, you're just watching it on your TV or on your computer or on your phone, and I'm fine with all of those mediums, but to see it actually on the big screen after watching it on a smaller screen is fascinating. It almost breathes a whole new life to it that you didn't even know existed before. So, yeah, it's interesting to see things like that on the big screen.
And especially for me, with 2001, A Space Odyssey, and nowadays, the movie is so deliberately paced, and it is slow compared to, recent movies. I mean, it's extremely slow compared to recent movies. And if you're sitting at home and you're watching on DVD or Blu-ray, then you can pause to go to the bathroom, or pause to, just make some popcorn, or just to check your email, or whatever, go outside for a second. But in this movie, you can't pause. I mean, there is an intermission in the middle of it, and it was a true intermission for about 10, 12 minutes. But you can't, you're in it. Like, there's all of that Ligeti music, the kind of swirling voices and all that stuff at the very beginning before you even see a frame of film, of a picture at all. It starts off with this cacophonous music, and then you kind of drop into the beginning of the film. So it's just that. It's it's purposefully slowing down your pace and getting you to kind of focus in on what's in front of you. And most movies nowadays don't do that. And so it was a cool experience to see, and just to be in that with that movie, for however long it was, I don't know, 2.5 hours, something like that. So, no, but it was cool. I really enjoyed it.
All right. So to the next subject, which was the 200th episode, I'm excited about it, but I'm also a little scared.
So excited about it. In fact, I've attempted, and I will succeed on watching all of my top 10 movies before we do the podcast. So
wow.
I'm 6 movies in right now. So,
wow.
Yeah. And I'm trying to do them in order, 10 to 1. So it's interesting.
See, that's kind of what scares me, is that you're so definitive and your list is so solid. And I'm not embarrassed by it.
There's one that it may drop off. And it's not anything. I love the movie, but it may drop off. So we'll just have to see. Because I did kind of add 2 very recently, within the last year, because I've had a running total since probably, I don't know, 07 or 08 of my top, pick a number of all time, top 50, and then top 25, and then top 10. But so yeah, we're gonna do that, and we're gonna both kind of come at it. You probably are just gonna write them all down on a piece of paper on the day, right? Is that what you're gonna do?
Yeah. I have been. I had my original one that when we first originally talked about this way back in the day, 5 years ago or so, and I have those lists still. So I have referenced those, and most of them have not changed. There has been 1 or 2 that have been added, and 1 or 2 that have dropped off, obviously, but it's a perplexing thing for me. I don't know why. There's something about it. I'm pretty much a definitive personality. Yes, I like tuna fish salad. No, I hate watermelon. It's just who I am, and that's never going to change. But when it comes to asking me my favorite movies of all time, I always feel like next week when something else comes out, I now have to debate whether or not to take. It's just hard for me to be definitive about this subject. But since it is our 200th episode, I will do it, and it will be great, and I'm proud of us, and we can talk about that more next episode.
You asked for, we've done fall movie previews before, but you asked for specifically an Oscar predictions element to this. Is there a specific reason for that, or are you just wanting to roll the dice early?
No, I just think it's interesting. I think it's interesting when people talk about movies and performances before they see them, and most of them on my list tonight I have not seen. So it's more of a instinct / feeling, and a lot of times I have in the past been able to look at something and say, oh yeah, she's going to win the Oscar. Why? I have no idea. It's just something that happens, and a lot of times when I talk about it, it doesn't come true, so maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot with this episode in general. But I just find it fascinating that people talk about things before they see them, but I also understand why people do that. It's because there's this buzz or this feeling around the picture or the director. And a couple of things on my list tonight, and they're just random. I did it like we do the Oscars, the top 5 categories: actor, actress, supporting, director, adapted, picture, and original screenplay. But I only have a few for the screenplays because I think that's definitely something you can't predict unless you see the movie. I mean, it's just one of those things. I don't know why I think it's okay to try to predict other things, but for some reason, screenplay is obviously about other things that you have to see, feel, and hear in order to really weigh in on it. So I just find it fascinating, and any reason to talk about the Oscars on any level. And it's also will be fun to see what is on our list versus what ends up happening, because it's usually at this time of the year, there's 3 or 4 front runners, and then there's 1 or 2 possibilities, and then there's 2 or 3 black sheeps, or whatever they call them, dark horses, and then there's always like one that people never see coming, and that's the one that fascinates me the most. So I'm hoping that 1 or 2 of my choices become that dark horse, because they deserve to be there this year. So that's what that was about.
Oh, cool.
Or is about.
All right. So, all right. Well, so what's your so let's just go, I mean, I'm excited to go right to that. What's the one that you think that people are missing in the talk, but you think that is going to really just kind of shine through performance-wise?
Okay. So hopefully, so then let's start with supporting actor, because that's where he lies.
Okay.
I don't know how you want to break it down, but that's just how I broke it down. So I don't know if you want to. Yeah. Okay. Well, you and I have talked about Jonah Hill showing up again on this list, and he's in a movie called Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on His Feet. I believe Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Far on foot. What'd I say? On feet? Yeah. That's what you get for handwriting your document, Paul James, because it does definitely say foot, but from far away with my glasses, it looks like feet. Anyway, yes, Jonah Hill, I would like to see show up again, just because I think that he's finally proved himself with 2 Oscar nominations, but I still think people think Jonah Hill, Academy Award nominee, and I hate that. It doesn't matter who it is or where they come from or what they do. I don't care if they were on the Mickey Mouse Club, if they were on The Bachelor. I don't care. If they put in an Academy Award nominatable performance, then they should be honored regardless of who they are. And he has definitely reshaped his reputation as an actor. Not that he's ever had a bad reputation, but he's definitely a contender when it comes to the Oscars. He's been nominated twice, and he's nominated for 2 great films. So it'd be nice to see him. I also have Timothée Chalamet on there for Beautiful Boy, and he might float in there because of last year's nomination, and everybody loves him. And then before I get to the hopefully surprise one, there's this constant talk on all these websites about Michael B. Jordan being nominated for Black Panther. And I need to know how you feel about that, because I know that this is not necessarily your field of expertise. And I know you're always reluctant about giving opinions about stuff like this, because I think you think you're not qualified, but that's exactly why you're qualified, because you don't think you're qualified, if that makes sense. But how do you feel about something like that? I think it's great that they want to honor this film, And it would be nice for this to be in Best Picture because it would be the first of its kind. And if any film wants to break some glass ceilings, this should do it. And I'm fine with this being in the popular vote thing or whatever that thing's going to be.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about his specific performance being talked about?
Well, I think that I think his character is a lot more complex even than the T'Challa character. So, I mean, if we're gonna pick out a character, his character, and then Lupita Nyong'o's character, I can't remember her name, but I think those two characters are kind of the most. They have the most interesting, not even necessarily arcs, but the most interesting situations where, specifically with the Killmonger character, I mean, he's affected by, the death of his father, and then finding out that he's part of this tribe that has disowned him, and then now he's having to deal with not only being African American in the United States, in America. But he's also having to deal with understanding that there are people that are his people that have the potential to change the world, and I'll use that in the finger quotes way of change the world, and it's change the world in the way that he wants them to change the world, but to change the world, and they're not doing anything about it. So having that as the basis for your villain, if we look at some of the previous villains, like you've got, the whip guy in Iron Man 2, and you've got the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. I mean, you can bring up certain villains, which it's just like the villains are kind of like just there to be defeated as opposed to being there to bring up any kind of issues or talk about anything. So I think that there were probably easier villains that could have been had in this movie, and they decided to make something that was a lot more complex and make something that happens at the end have a lot more weight than just like, man, I really wish that Spider-Man kills the Vulture. So I mean, I kind of like, I think I applaud that, and I think that even that in today's movies, in today's Marvel movies, should be celebrated. And if any villain should be raised up to be a best supporting actor nominee from a character standpoint, it should be that one. And as far as Michael B. Jordan's performance, he's great. He's good in everything that I've seen him in. I mean, I saw him all the way back in The Wire, and then and all of those things that he's done since then. I haven't seen Fahrenheit 451, and I've heard things about it, but I do want to see that movie, and just the other things that he's been in recently. Obviously, Creed, and he's done well, and he's made some interesting choices these last few years. So, I mean, I'd be okay with it. It does sound like they're going to go for a Best Picture nomination as opposed to trying to, go for this nondescript Best Popular Movie thing. Kevin Feige has said that they're still going to like spend the money they need to spend to do the Black Panther as Best Picture, for your consideration deal. So, I mean, that's definitely happening as far as the higher ups are concerned. But as far as the characters in there, I'm not really sure, what they're going to do, because from what it sounds like, and you know more about this than I do, but from what it sounds like, it's not just, like, is this performance worthy enough? It's, do all the right people do the right things to get this into a position that it can be nominated, that it can be nominatable, for lack of a better word. So, I mean, does that sound about right? You can't just have like random things and it's just like some random person shows up and gets nominated.
No, I don't necessarily think. Well, no, that does happen. I agree with almost everything that you said. I will say this: I have seen almost everything recently that Michael B. Jordan has done, and I've liked him in everything. Mm-hmm. And I think your description of his character is more attributed to the screenplay than it is his ability. Not saying his ability doesn't hold up, because obviously people don't listen because it's a screenplay, or don't listen because it's words other than Michael B. Jordan saying them have said the same thing about him. And I think it's great that he's getting recognition, but it goes back to the same thing with Patricia Arquette and Eddie Redmayne and all of these people who kind of came out of nowhere to be nominated, and everybody talked about them, and I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't see it. And sometimes it takes looking back at a film and seeing what everybody has seen. And I've seen Black Panther, I think, twice, maybe 3 times, maybe more actually. And I think that Michael B. Jordan holds his own, but for me, it seems like if he's nominated, I think it's great. Good for him. And he'll deserve it. But there's just something missing for me with that in a feeling. There's a feeling about it that I don't get when I think about him being nominated for that. Actually, Fruitvale Station, I thought he was great in. He could have easily been nominated for that. I actually, if it was a lesser of a year, Creed, he's a lead character, so that's kind of a hard nomination because it's such a weighty category. But he was great in Creed. Without him being in the lead, that film would not have worked as well.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting that he's being talked about, but I'm wondering if that's just kind of but maybe it's the fact that he is so nuanced and so well written that people aren't used to that in villains. Although Whiplash from Iron Man 2 does have a whole backstory of why he has
dad
revenge
or something.
Yeah. And the twins both have backstories. In Age of Ultron, they eventually become good people, but they're bad people at the beginning. There's a whole backstory to them with the bomb and Tony Stark, and for 4 days they waited to be blown up. Yada yada yada. So there are backstories to villains that are more complicated in the Marvel universe than people actually think about when they talk about it. But this particular performance by Michael B. Jordan is weighty. It does have weight to it. So I'm interested to see if this is just kind of this push for this film, which definitely deserves to be recognized on some kind of level. But I'm not feeling that nomination. And I can't even put my finger on why, because I love everything he does in the movie. I love everything he does. I like the way he's written, so forth and so on. But for whatever reason, it just doesn't stab out at me as an Oscar nominatable, not performance, but role, if you will. So I don't know. We'll see. I just find that interesting. But back to the supporting actor category. So I think the big surprise should be Alex Wolff from Hereditary, the son. Yeah. It's one of those performances that when we talked about Hereditary. We talked about, of course, Toni Collette, because she's on the list too, and she's been on the list for many people for the longest time, and people have been talking about the screenplay, which I wouldn't have a problem with, the director, which I'm not so sure about, and the picture, which I'm definitely not sure about. But there's something about Alex Wolff's performance that without that performance, that movie would not have been held together. It just wouldn't. He's a key player in the movie, even though he's a supporting character. But his performance is as stunning as hers is, and that's saying a lot. And a lot of times people get into these machines where they start rolling down the street with Toni Collette, and then they don't really look at the thing as a whole. And I've seen his name on a few people's lists, but they're all not just long shots, but long shots, like if there's a surprise. But that said, like I said at the beginning of this episode, there is always one nomination where people went, oh, where did that come from? That's come out of nowhere, basically. And I'm hoping for supporting actor, that's where this lies. I hope Alex Wolff is not forgotten and he is remembered, because once he is nominated and people go back and watch the movie again with that in mind, everybody will be like, oh yeah, definitely. He so deserves an Oscar nomination. Why weren't we thinking of that? And I think I've only seen one list with his name on it so far, 2 if you count mine. But yeah, so how are you feeling about supporting actor? You have anything to add to that one?
I didn't lay it out in those ways, but I do have, a list of the movies that I've seen this year, and I don't think, man, supporting actor would be rough for me to come up with somebody to, to really say, yeah, I couldn't. I might have some supporting actress ones, as far as like, I don't know, even like in Annihilation, Gina Rodriguez does well, but just looking at some of these other ones, I don't know what Emily Blunt would be considered in A Quiet Place, but would she be considered actress? I would think so.
I'm guessing actress.
Because they can't, unless
guessing
they try to like pawn it off to get her a nomination as a supporting actress. But I mean, she's like one of the four main characters in the movie, but one of the two grown-ups in the movie. But I thought she was awesome. And then, shoot, I'd give all the awards to Tessa Thompson for anything she's done, but
anything and everything, right?
Can you just give her like the award for 2018? I don't know. But yeah, she was awesome in Sorry to Bother You. I mean, she was in Westworld, not that counts in this, but and she was also in Annihilation too. So anyway, so I didn't really lay it out in that way, but I will bring up, since we're talking about supporting actors, even if he didn't get a supporting actor nomination, he could possibly get a screenwriting and a director nomination, because he's directed his first movie this year and it hasn't come out yet, Mid-90s, which has Lucas Hedges in it, like every other movie that's coming out this year. So, and that looks interesting. I mean, it's kind of like a kind of weird coming of age, skateboard 90s movie. So and it uses mixed media. It uses like digital cameras and stuff, kind of like a skater movie type thing. But I think it's probably got some deeper themes in it too. Just by seeing the trailer, it seems like it's a lot more serious than it is, just jokey. So it looks kind of interesting. I'm interested to see that. And like I said, it's one of the, I think, 3 movies that has Lucas Hedges in it this year.
Yes, he's the Domhnall Gleeson of 2018 and 19.
That's right. Yeah, because it's this one.
Although Domhnall Gleeson hasn't been a slacker, because he's been in like everything too.
Well, that's true.
I mean, he did that Christopher Robbins film. He did. He's been in everything. He's in something else too, and I'm like, is he there too? Oh, I can't remember what the name of the film is, but yeah, he's everywhere this year too.
Yeah.
So would you just list all the films for possible nominations?
That's what I did. So I did, like, first of all, I did like movies I'm most excited about, and then movies that I think are gonna get kind of like some Oscar jazz.
Let me name my supporting actress possibilities, and then we'll go back to one of your list, and then we'll do it that way. So I'm glad that you mentioned Gina Rodriguez, but I'm also kind of jealous I didn't say it first, because that is the nomination I'm looking for. She has shown up on quite a few people's lists. She deserves to be up there. I saw Annihilation again, and she's a standout, and everything I felt about her the first time I saw it, I felt it the second time I saw it. I am personally in love with that movie, and it should show up in Best Picture. It might not, because it's been so long. It definitely deserves to be adapted screenplay. Could be even director, could be even actress. Natalie Portman, she's fantastic in it. But Gina Rodriguez is a standout in that film. And hopefully it's one of those nominations that happens and people go, oh yeah, she was great in that. Let's see that movie again. Or I've never seen that movie. And once they see it, knowing that people thought, 6,000 people who vote on the Oscars thought that she was worth an Oscar nomination, they will see it in that light. And she has a chance depending on her competition, because she's that good in that film, to the point where I don't recognize her. I can't see her. And that's always an interesting thing to me. So I'm glad that you said that, because I'm definitely an advocate of her being nominated. Nicole Kidman's probably going to end up with another nomination for Boy Erased. Speaking of Lucas Hedges again. And then there's also talk about this film called If Beale Street Could Talk. Have you heard about this film?
Have you seen the trailer?
No, I'm afraid of it. Like I'm afraid.
And it's Barry Jenkins. So I mean, I'm all in.
I know. Yeah, and there's talk about him being nominated again and that he is a front runner, and there's talk about Regina King being nominated. And oh my god, I will so love it. Finally. There there is talk about her being nominated for an Oscar, and she's almost on everybody's list that I've looked. And I adore her. I cannot get enough of her whenever I see her in anything. I still am an advocate of her from The Leftovers and her being left off all the nomination lists for TV that year. But she ended up winning the Emmy 2 years. I might be back to back. I'm not sure, but she's won the Emmy for two other separate shows, and she's nominated again this year. So there's just something about people who consistently work, who consistently are great, and who consistently just touch my soul. And ever since, way before this, but ever since Jerry Maguire. And do you remember Regina King and Jerry Maguire?
Oh, that's what I know her from. That's the one of the movies I've seen that she's in. I haven't seen many things that she's in, but yeah, I totally remember her from that.
She's such a standout.
She's Rod's wife.
Yeah. Yes, and that scene where the brother is kind of dissing on him when he's hurt, and she just goes off on him and beats the hell out of him. There's just so much truth in her whole performance, and if this was this year and that movie came out, she would be nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Jerry Maguire because she's as interesting as he is. He just took over the world, Cuba Gooding Jr. at the time. But without her, and people can argue this back and forth, but I'm right about this. Without her, his performance would not have been as much of a standout. It just would not. She just brings this grounding. So, okay, I got all that out. I'm happy. Gina Rodriguez, Regina King, let's do it, man. I need for those people to be recognized. Anyway, that was enough of that.
Wow. I guess what we can do is I'll talk about the movies that I'm most excited about seeing. And number one on my list, I think number one on my list should be First Man by Damien Chazelle, but that's not true. It's actually Suspiria by Luca Guadagnino, because that movie looks so crazy. Like, they just came out with another trailer this week. It looks so crazy. I don't want to see anything else, because I feel like if I would have just seen the first trailer, I probably would have been happier going into the movie. And it just looks, it looks like something I can't figure out, and that intrigues me. And we know what he's capable of, because we saw, Call Me by Your Name, and just cinematically, he has the ability to do something with this story. And it's something completely different than what Dario Argento did, I think. I mean, I'm sure it's got a similar skeleton of, dancing and, the basic skeleton. But when it comes down to all the little things, even the set dressings and the color palette, it's completely different. So I'm so excited to see this movie. And Dakota Johnson looks amazing in it. And Tilda Swinton, of course, is going to be awesome. Chloe Grace Moretz is in it. I think there's a few other people in it that we might recognize. But so yeah, that's the movie I'm the most excited about. And then next would be First Man. Really, this year and this fall has so many movies coming out from like my favorite contemporary directors. I mean, David Fincher and Paul Thomas Anderson do not make an appearance this year, but we've got First Man by Damien Chazelle, we've got The Favorite by Yorgos Lanthimos, and we've got Hold the Dark by Jeremy Saulnier. Like, all those right there, that is my wheelhouse. I mean, I love all of those guys, so I'm so excited about those. And actually, The Favorite for me, like, I watched the trailer and I was kind of like, I don't know, it seemed a little off compared to the other movies, because it seems so, compared to Lanthimos' other movies, because it seemed so straightforward. And then I found out that he didn't use his same writer for this. I think it was already an established thing, the Favorite. So the screenplay maybe, but I'm still interested, and I'll still be there, because I mean, it's Yorgos Lanthimos. So we'll see what happens. But as far as the, it's like about a 18th century queen played by Olivia Colman, and she, there's some like things going on in the background between servants and all these other people. Rachel Weisz is in it, so I don't know. It looks like it's funny, but it also looks like it's awkward. So that kind of lines up with Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yeah, I also don't think that you can predict what his movies are going to be through a trailer, because if I remember correctly, The Killing of a Sacred Deer seemed to be more of a murder mystery type of thriller when the commercial came out or the trailer came out. So I was watching The Favorite again, the trailer yesterday or the day before, and I'm thinking to myself, it has some oddness to it. It seems straightforward because of what we're used to, but if you were to take certain scenes out of Dogtooth and certain scenes out of The Lobster and certain scenes out of The Killing of a Sacred Deer and just played them for what they were versus what we know they are, it might not be as disturbing as what it is when it's all put together in Yorgos Lanthimos' mind. And they're talking about Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay. Yeah, they're talking about a lot of things with him. Yeah, so to see his name on these lists is important, because I believe somebody infamously said that you doubt that you would see in your lifetime somebody like Yorgos Lanthimos being nominated and or winning an Oscar. So for that reason alone, I hope it happens. I'm interested in the movie as much as I am interested in saying, see, Josh, cynical young man, see how the world can work out for you after all. So I'm interested in this film on so many different levels. I hope it is completely Yorgos Lanthimos in his best light, but fools everybody into thinking it's something else. And then once you're in the theater, you're in his world. And
he's got you.
Yeah, and I think his movies are like that. So everybody I know who I've told about any of those films that we just talked about, with the exception of this new one, have seen it and had some kind of, I wouldn't say life-altering event happen, but they experienced something in a movie they had never experienced before. Intrigue, or an analytical breakdown of something, or the idea that love can be as perplexing as turning into an animal if you don't find the right person. Something to make them go, I never thought about that like that before. So it's good that he's on these lists. And it's good that people, regardless of whether or not they think he's going to be nominated, they're talking about him. And that's always good, because people like me who, now I pay more attention, but 20 years ago, we've talked about this a million times, I would have never known who he was if he wasn't nominated for an Oscar, or if he wasn't in the mainstream or whatever. That's why the Oscars are important to me. We've talked about this a million times before, because there usually is a picture like The Lobster or a screenplay or something where I go, what is that? And I remember Dogtooth being nominated too, and thinking, that is the oddest name for a film I've heard in a long time. What is that about? I never got around to seeing it until after you started talking about it. But still, these things happen because of the Oscars. As a matter of fact, another movie called Leave No Trace. Have you seen the trailer for this with Ben Foster? I believe it's Deborah Granick is the director/writer. Mm-hmm. She's the writer and director of Winter's Bone. And because of the Oscars, I saw that movie. Because of the Oscars, I saw Jennifer Lawrence for the first time. I was deeply affected by that movie. And without the Oscars, I wouldn't know anything about it. It's different now. You can go to IMDb, you can look things up, you can go to blogs, you can go to podcasts, you can do a whole bunch of different things that you couldn't do 25 years ago. So it's really great. It's almost too much information maybe, but yeah. So let's go Yorgos. Let's go. Let's get him in there, right?
Well, and similarly, I've heard a lot of Twitter about Damien Chazelle and First Man, and about how it sounds like it's not necessarily like the right stuff necessarily. It's just focusing on the Apollo 11 mission specifically, and all the things that went into that with Ryan Gosling playing Neil Armstrong, Claire Foy playing his wife, and then how that affected his family life and just him as a person being a little bit different than a lot of the other astronauts. He was a little bit more reserved, and how that affected what he was doing. And so I'm excited to see that, to the point where I'm not watching any more trailers or anything. I just want to let it happen and see it in the theater, because just seeing the first trailer, it obviously looks stylized, like the teaser trailer that came out a few weeks ago, and it looks like, right down the plate for Jamie and Giselle. So I'm excited to see that. And then Hold the Dark, Jeremy Saulnier, he's been busy this year. He directed the first 2 episodes of True Detective, which is about to come out.
Did you see that trailer?
Yes, Mahershala Ali. He's busy too, but
he should be.
It does look good. Hopefully it's a return to form. I did get through the second season of True Detective, but it definitely wasn't the same as the first one. Yeah, I'm excited to have all that. Also, I think David Milch co-wrote 1 or 2 of the episodes of True Detective, which is also cool, because you've got the Nick Pizzolatto who usually writes all the episodes. It's cool that David Milch is sure, I'll come in and write an episode. So that also, to me, bodes well that he was interested enough to get in there and help him out. So we've got Jeremy Saulnier doing that, and he also directed this movie for Netflix, which I don't know if it's going to get a theatrical release, which means it may not have any kind of Oscar anything, but it's called Hold the Dark, and looks creepy. It looks like, I don't know, it looks like a more interesting Wind River or something. So it looks like Wind River with, oh, you're rolling your eyes. It looks like Wind River with a lot more kind of like surreal craziness,
I've got to learn how to do this passive aggressive thing, because it really works for you, because you have a way of getting it in there. Yeah, I don't even think you're doing it when you do it, but there's always like some kind of, somebody who might be a little too sensitive or take things a little too personally. I'm not saying me, but could be me, could think that was a little bit of a jab, because you just cannot let things go sometimes. Anyway, move on. Let's move on.
So yeah, you've got Jeffrey Wright and Riley Keough and Alexander Skarsgård. So if you're like setting up a murderer's row, that's a pretty good murderer's row, especially when you look at these are all like top-notch supporting actors. Like these are A1 prime cut top-notch supporting actors, and they're all getting more starring roles now, and specifically in this movie. The other thing about a supporting actor, I think, is that you have to there's nuance associated with this, and I'm sure you can talk about this a lot more eloquently than I can. But to be a solid supporting actor, you have to be able to do this thing where you are you're bolstering the main character, and you're also solid in who your character is, but your character doesn't have the luxury of having more lines or more screen time, but you still, to stand out as a supporting actor, and to be a great one, I think you have to be able to utilize your screen time and your interactions with the main characters in a way that that it adds to the whole. And I think all of these characters, or all of these actors, do this. And I've come around on Jeffrey Wright. He does some things that kind of annoy me sometimes, but I've come around on him, and he's just a great actor. And Riley Keough, we talk about her all the time. She's
amazing.
Yeah, and she's one of those actors. She's like Melissa Leo to me, where it's like I'm like halfway through a trailer or into a movie, and I'm like, oh look, that's Riley Keough. Like I didn't even realize, and it's because she's able to just melt into a character. And so I'm really excited about that. And I think that my biggest Alexander Skarsgård thing right now has been Big Little Lies, and I'm sure he's been in other stuff, but I can't remember. Was he in
True Blood?
Well, Wait, he was in True Blood. That's where I saw him first. Okay. So
Yeah.
then, but then he's also been in, like I never saw Tarzan. I never saw that, and I
I
don't know if
saw
he's
it.
been in anything else. But yeah, I just his performance in Big Little Lies was awesome. Did he win the
He-
Emmy for that?
Everything. Everything.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Him
good.
and
All
her.
right. Well, he should have.
Him and her. Yeah.
Him it.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool.
As for speaking on acting, it's interesting how you look at things versus how I look at things. I guess that's what we're hopefully doing here, and that's what makes this podcast interesting, at least to us, is that as an actor, you don't really ever think about things like that. For me, it's about a moment. Am I supporting the moment, or is the moment believable in my being? And is the director liking the choices I'm making to support the story as a whole, not necessarily as a supporting actor? Of course, there's this old saying, there's no small parts, only small actors. And I honestly and truthfully believe that's true. I've seen hundreds of plays at this point in my life. I've been blessed with seeing some of the most interesting theater in the world and some of the most interesting pieces, fresh playwrights writing parts for 14-year-old African-American girls 25 years ago, things that were unheard of to a degree. Not that that was necessarily unheard of, but just things in general that are unheard of are being put into plays, and I've been blessed to see them. And I saw a play where an actor had 2 lines and he had 2 scenes, and one scene was where he was beating somebody up in a strobe light to make it look like this slow motion battle, and it was terrifying because he was terrifying. I actually sat up to kind of get a different angle because I thought they were beating this guy up. That's how intense this young actor was, and he had 2 lines, and I to this day remember him. I remember the play too, but I remember him. For whatever reason, it just sticks out. And so as for supporting actor, worried about or thinking about that kind of stuff, you think about moments, and you think about what I want, and the old cliche of my motivation. It's a reason it's a cliche, because you do have to know why you're coming into this and why you're staying on stage. There's A, there's B. A wants something from B. That causes a conflict. When they come together and figure out what the resolution is, that's the resolution. Usually it's antagonist, protagonist in one scene. Well, why even be there? Why show up? Why does your character show up? There has to be a reason. So these people like Riley Keough, Lucas Hedges, Regina King, Jennifer Lawrence, they have this instinctual ability to mirror moments in real life as if they're happening right then and there, right in front of us for the first time. They've never said those words before, and it's almost a miracle in a way. It is what I consider true magic. And I was laughing about this the other night, standing backstage, but I honestly and truthfully feel this way. I feel like I'm at Hogwarts when I'm backstage. I feel like I'm in a magical school, because when you see somebody do something so utterly believable on stage and you get to stand there and watch it or get to see it, it's magic, because you're making something appear that doesn't exist. You're making a true feeling based on some written dialogue, some contrived, for lack of a better term, moment look real, as if it's happening right then and there. And to actually feel something like that, and I'm hard to say I've ever really done that on stage, but I have felt things similar to that. And that's the quest, is to try to get there and to try to let everything go and let it all be in the moment, all those cliches that you hear. But when it does happen, it feels like nothing else in this world, at least for me. And I have been lucky in this play to have moments where I've completely forgotten I'm on stage. I've completely forgotten the audience is there. And like we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, I talk directly to the audience. So it's impossible to forget they're there. But in some of these moments when these things are occurring and I'm in the middle of it, I have thought as I'm driving home, I don't remember the audience being there. Like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And to me, it's a good thing because I got lost. So actors, I believe, think about moments and they think about intentions and what their I wants are. So I don't think an actor at the caliber that we're talking about would be worried about, making sure something is large enough for their character to be representative, other than for the storytelling process, if any of that makes sense. So it's an interesting thing to try to do, and it's baffling and perplexing, but when you tap into it, it's like nothing else in this world. So for me, I mean, think about it. There have been people in movies that have had one line and they are remembered. When Harry Met Sally, Rob Reiner's mother, I'll have what she's having. That's the thing that's remembered from that movie. And I believe she came up with that on the spot. And so to actually watch people do moment-to-moment work, and that's also why I think that the supporting actor and actress category are more interesting to me, because they do all those things that you describe, but have 8 minutes of screen time. And you come out of that film going, I think about Judi Dench in Shakespeare in Love every time I think about that movie. And she's in 8 minutes of it. So it's, Riley Keough in that, what was that movie she did about the, oh God, I can't think. American Pie. Was it American Pie? No. What's it? What? Damn it! I can't
that is a movie. American Honey.
American Honey. She has a couple of scenes in that movie, but she has one scene. She has two scenes in particular. One of which is Shia LaBeouf is putting sunscreen or lotion on her, and when she's talking to the character that she's talking about, it never dawns on you that she's actually manipulating the situation to get this person to do what she wants, not just talking about Shia LaBeouf, but the other person. And she does it in such a way that you're creeped out, at the same time you're intrigued, at the same time you're a little turned on, at the same time you're wanting to run away. And I just think that that's an ability that people are genetically predisposed to have. And that's why it's always going to be a quest for me and never an actual destination, because I think there are people genetically blessed, and I think there are people who just show up. And I'm somewhere in between, I think. So anyway, that's a long-winded way to go about saying that it's interesting to me that you look at it one way and I see it in a completely different way. Neither way is wrong. They're both, like, you'd probably be a better director than I would because you're seeing it from a full picture, full story perspective. I, on the other hand, love the fact that I'm a minor character in this new play that I'm doing, because I get to sit backstage. And just the other day, after weeks of rehearsing it, did the play click for me? And I went, oh, that's what this play is about. Oh, okay. Maybe I should listen a little bit more. But it is a blessing to actually sit backstage and just hear. You get to hear a story told every night. And when we were 5, 6, 7, 8 preschool years up to middle school years, story time was the best time of the day. So I get to do that every night. So it's just, it's unbelievably great. So I don't know where that tirade came from, but there you go.
Well, Riley Keough's in another movie that's coming out this year. It's called Under the Silver Lake, and it's from writer-director David Robert Mitchell, who we last saw in, who last did It Follows. So I don't know if you've seen that trailer or not, but it looks crazy, and I'm kind of interested. So I think it could go either way.
One of these two movies I saw a trailer for, and I can't remember what it was, because I think you were talking about, what's the first film that we were talking about with her?
Into the Dark is Hold the Dark.
Hold the Dark. I thought it was that one, but it might be this second film that you just mentioned is the trailer that I saw. I can't remember. I saw a trailer with her, and once again, you're right. It takes like 5 minutes and a little bit after the trailer to go, wait a second, was that Riley Keough? Wait, that doesn't look or sound or act. And she's something. Let's see her get an Oscar nomination. Wouldn't that be something?
Hey, all right, that sounds good. So, all right, I think there's. I mean, I've got other ones on here that I just heard about recently. I mean, there's this Vox Lux with Natalie Portman. She's like a pop star or something. And that a trailer just came out for that. And I don't know if it's I mean, I don't know about a lot of these movies. What kind of like I mean, the guy who directed is a fairly young director, and he's mainly an actor, Brady Corbett. So I have no idea about some of these movies, whether they're gonna be huge like indie movies or not. One performance that looks interesting to me is Rosalind Private War. I think it's kind of like a Oscar Beatty type of a performance. I'm not saying that her character's the character itself is not worthy of its own movie. I think it is. It's about a journalist who kind of goes into all these crazy third world areas or war torn areas, and she just keeps going back, to her detriment. And it's based on a true story. So, and things kind of unfold from there. But it looks like she's, giving a really strong performance, both physically and emotionally. So, but yeah. And then there's other movies. Have you heard about, it's already out, but, Bo Burnham's Eighth Grade? Have you heard about that movie?
Yeah, I have, and I'm a little scared of it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be real serious, even though Bo Burnham is a comedian and he's really funny, but I think it's going to be like a real kind of, serious, coming of age movie. So I don't know. I've been a little skittish. It's at Alamo Drafthouse, but I'm just kind of like, oh, there's probably other stuff I can watch. So
yeah, I'm not scared of it for any other reason, but I hated middle school, and I hated high school, and I hated eighth grade. So I don't want to relive it.
Oh, you probably will with this movie.
No, totally. Because even in the trailer, you can still see little zits on the girl's face, which I love when they let realism play through. And it's just that, I'm just, because I don't want it to be, it's going to be what it is, because you can feel that it is true to its own nature just by its trailer. But I don't want it to be one of those things where she starts to become popular and then something happens and come to find out that her underwear's up a flagpole. And those are all really superficial things that can happen in a film. And I'm sure none of those things happen in this film. But that whole idea of trying to fit in and then not being able to fit in and then fitting in and then it's really just a farce to make fun of you. If it's anything like that, I have trouble with those films because just they break my heart in a way that most films don't. So I'm definitely going to see it because I've heard nothing but spectacular things about it. And there's talk about the young lady being nominated. There's talk about the director's screenplay being nominated. And so if that happens, obviously, then we know where that game is going because I'll have to see it. And I'm sure I'll see it eventually. I just have an instinct about certain things where I know what frame of mind I have to be in order to dig into a film. And there are films out there, once again, we'll talk about Dogtooth, where you have no idea where you're going when you start that movie, so you can't be prepared on some kind of level. You just can't. Even if you read about it, even if you see the trailer, you just cannot be prepared for that. And so your frame of mind is not relevant. But for something like Eighth Grade, I can tell. It's like, did you ever see Gus Van Sant's Elephant?
Yes,
I believe it was
I
called.
did.
Yes. Same thing.
Yeah.
I had this instinct. I was going to have to be prepared for it. And it's small little things in that film that to this day I can't shake. I can't shake that young girl with the glasses. I guess she's kind of the smart one, if you will. She's really reserved, and he follows her around a couple of times. You don't learn a whole lot about those characters. And then there's that odd scene where the two young men, all of a sudden, the day that they choose to do what they're doing, one of them's taking a shower, and then all of a sudden the other one just opens the door and jumps in, and next thing you know, they're kind of like on top of each other, and you're like, wait, what's happening here? And it's not because of the guy on guy thing. Of course, it's not that. It's just that there's a feeling to how he put that together that makes it so odd, as if this was just a matter of fact thing that they did, like brushing your teeth, or going to the bathroom, that it was just assumed that these two people were going to be romantically inclined once they were in the shower together. And you're like, wait, what? And I'm not even putting a good description to it because there are no words for it. It's not odd for any other reason than that whole film is just, it's the pacing of it's odd.
Well, I think the film felt clinical to me, which is kind of the opposite of what you would think for something that's such an a school shooting is an emotional thing, and the whole film just, it's just all of that leading up to the act, the actual act at the end. It just felt so clinical, and even the way that he shot it with like high shots from behind people walking, it just felt like a separation from the characters that gives you this feeling of like there's an inevitability about the whole thing, and and that it just puts you in a weird, like an uncomfortable position. And I'm sure that this movie, Eighth Grade, the star, by the way, her name's Elsie Fisher, is probably going to do a similar thing. And maybe my reticence to see it in the theater is that maybe I'd rather deal with all that at home and not have to deal with that in a theater with a bunch of other people. So that's probably why I'm going to wait to rent it.
Yeah, but what I've learned is the opposite is what you should do. Then
That's
you should
true.
see it in the theater, because if that's what's making you uncomfortable, now this is me giving you advice on something I just said I didn't want to see because I'm uncomfortable, and now I have to go see it because I have to take my own advice. It needs to last a little while because I can't deal with it right now. And that's a compliment. Let's get that clear. All of that is a compliment. There's nothing about the film that is off-putting to me other than the fact that I just know it's going to take me to a place that I know and I don't necessarily want to be ever again. And it might be a cathartic experience on so many different other levels, but for me, instinctually, it's got something about. Hereditary did that to me. I was afraid of that film for the longest time. I was afraid when I was watching it. I told you when I was watching, I kept looking over my shoulder like, if there's ever a time for a serial killer to kill a bunch of people in a theater, this is it, because this movie would be perfect because everybody's transfixed and no one's suspecting it, and it's completely ridiculous. And I even got up and checked the aisles because I was convinced somebody was hiding, okay? Because that's what my mind does, okay? Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But yeah, I am definitely going to see Eighth Grade, but I have to go slowly and lightly down my darkened ways. So
another movie that I'm actually watching the trailer again today. I'm actually kind of excited about seeing is Wildlife. It's Paul Dano, his directorial debut. Stars Carey Mulligan and Jake Gyllenhaal as a married couple, and Jake Gyllenhaal's like a golf pro, and he loses his job, and I think he has to go get another job somewhere else. And Carey Mulligan is feeling, I guess, I don't know, but Bill Camp from Everything, he's in Everything. He was in The Night Of. He's in he was in a bunch of movies last year too. He was in Molly's Game. He was the guy in Molly's Game who kept gambling like way into the night and kept losing and asking for more money. He was in The Killing of the Sacred Deer. He was one of the other doctors in the watch doctor, I think, in The Killing of the Sacred Deer. And so he's been in a bunch of other movies. Loving, he was in Loving, Midnight Special. Anyway, he's an older gentleman who Carey Mulligan's character kind of like goes towards, and the whole time they're Carey Mulligan and Jake Gyllenhaal's young son is watching all of this, and it kind of gave me a like a Carol vibe, which was kind of cool. I mean, it's a period piece, but it kind of gave me a Carol. And I've never seen Revolutionary Road, but I think, and I know a lot of people don't like that movie, and you just decided, and that's fine. But I think that it gives me like a feel like of that time period, but I've never seen it, so I don't have any kind of baggage associated with that. So I'm excited to see what Paul Dano can do as a director, because I've really liked a lot of his performances.
Well, first of all, I didn't about Revolutionary Road because of the film, just the subject matter. The subject matter is intense, and it's also one of those things a friend of mine said, yes, middle class Caucasian people in suburbia have its what's that?
Ennui.
What's that?
It's like bemoaning your existence when you really shouldn't have that much to complain about.
Yes, and I saw the film before she explained it to me like that, and then after she said that, I went, yeah, okay, I get that. It's got great performances in it. Bill Camp, by the way, played God in The Leftovers. Just thought I'd let people know that. Yeah, totally cool. He actually has a very significant part in that that
you're not going to tell me about because I haven't seen it.
No, I'm not saying anything other than the fact that it's significant and that it was not in the book. So there you go. Yeah, it's well written. It's very well done. But yeah, there is something about, I was just looking up that movie you were just talking about with Paul Dano directing. There's something that looks interesting about it. First of all, Carey Mulligan and Jake Gyllenhaal. Okay. Yeah. Done.
Carey Mulligan. I'm down for anything with Carey Mulligan.
Done. Yeah, done. But there's also this thing that happens when they combine certain actors and directors, and Paul Dano has a very specific voice as an actor, and I've enjoyed everything he's done, literally.
Even Swiss Army Man?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it with Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. I didn't have a problem with it. I was intrigued how it was going to play out, and then finding out what actually happened, I thought it was intriguing. So I didn't necessarily have an issue with it. Obviously, you did. That's for another podcast.
Well, I didn't get through it. I couldn't get through it, so maybe I need to like watch it all the way through just to see. But
yeah, you don't say that too often, though, that you didn't get through it. So that says something. No, I didn't have any issues with it. I enjoyed it. But when you hear these young people directing, you think, okay, yeah, I really like their work. Good for them. Let them take off, because George Clooney started directing films early on in his acting career in movies. I mean, he's been doing this for 40 plus years, maybe even longer. But so when you hear somebody like Jonah Hill, even if Jake Gyllenhaal eventually becomes a director, when you hear that, you think, okay, these people have something to say. Robert Redford, back in the day, ended up winning the Oscar for the first picture he ever directed, Ordinary People. So there's something about certain people that you just go, okay, I entrust in you. There has to be a reason why you've switched gears into something completely different than what you've done for the last 20 years. It has to be at least listened to some degree. So yeah, that's interesting to me. All right, what else you got?
Galveston, directed by Melanie Laurent, who was in Inglourious Basterds. She's an actress. She's been in a few other movies, but she was famously the theater owner in Inglourious Basterds, and she's directing Ben Foster and Elle Fanning in this, like, Ben Foster's a bad dude who gets cancer and gets kicked out of his bad dude club and has to go back to Galveston to beat people up, and along the way he picks up Elle Fanning, who's a young teenage prostitute, and she has a younger sister, and so it looks like pretty violent.
Yeah, I think I have seen this. Well, first of all, okay, Elle Fanning, okay, Ben Foster, okay. I mean, pretty much you got me right there.
Mm-hmm.
How uninteresting could it be? Beau Bridges is in it. A lot of these other people I recognize but don't know them by name. So yeah, good for her. See, I love stuff like that. Good for her.
So yeah, I just saw the trailer today. It looks good. There's a couple shows that I'm interested in. One was True Detective, and then one's Maniac, which is Kerry Joji Fukunaga's new thing. You know, he was supposed
Hey, hold
to,
on a real quick second. Let me just stop you for a split second. What's the guy's name that wrote True Detective?
Nick Pizzolatto.
Yeah, he wrote the novel that the screenplay for Galveston is based on.
There you go. Okay, I knew there was another connection there. Yep.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt your thought process, but I thought that was something that was interesting enough to interrupt.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then a couple other movies that one movie I haven't seen, but I do want to watch is William Friedkin's First Reformed, starring Ethan Hawke, and
Oh yeah. He's front
really?
runner.
Okay. Well, I mean that
Definitely.
that intrigues me, and it's like I think he's a priest who has questions about belief and about whether he actually believes in what he's preaching. So so that is interesting to me. And then and Ethan Hawke has also directed a movie of his own called Blaze with a singer songwriter as the star, and Alia Shawkat plays his wife slash lover slash, I don't know if they're husband and wife or not, but it's kind of like a country singer movie, and I think it probably has something to do with being a performer, but then also maybe some like substance abuse issues or something too. I don't know, but it's getting good reviews, so that looks interesting too. That would probably be a rental for me, I think, but it looks kind of cool, and I like Alia Shawkat. She's awesome. She was in Green Room. She's been in Arrested Development. She was Maybe, so that's where I saw her first. But yeah, so those are the ones that I'm. Oh, and The Other Side of the Wind, the Orson Welles movie that got finished finally. Have you heard about that?
No, I have not.
So Orson Welles' last movie never was finished before he passed away. Now, he had instructions on exactly what he wanted to do with the rest of the movie, but for some reason, over the last, 30-something years, the movie has not been edited or finished. But they have finished it now and sold it to Netflix, and it stars John Huston. It's about a director who makes movies. And it is like shot in the 70s, and it looks kind of crazy. It's got Peter Bogdanovich in it. So it's got all other directors in it. It looks, you should look up the trailer. It looks pretty cool. Other Side of the Wind. I don't know. I think it's going to be released in some theaters, but just so that it could, I guess, possibly win. I don't know if it wins an Academy Award for back in the 70s, or if it did win an Academy Award, if it would win one for 2018, I guess for 2018.
No, it goes by release date. It goes by release date.
So it has to be
film that
this year.
Yeah, the film that won Jessica Lange her second Oscar for or her first for Best Actress, her second Oscar, Blue Sky, was shelved for 3 years before it was released, and it was almost 4 years to the day that she started filming that movie when she won the Oscar. So it's about release date. It's not about. So it is a possibility that it can be nominated.
Wow,
which would be freaking amazing.
That would be crazy. So yeah, it's about a director who comes back to Hollywood after being in Europe, and then he's shooting a movie called The Other Side of the Wind, and this movie is called The Other Side of the Wind. So yeah, maybe it's got a little bit of a meta thing going on there too. So I don't know. I mean, it's on Netflix, so I'll watch it. It's going to be crazy.
Side note really quick. First Reformed, I think you just said William Friedkin. Was that in reference to him directing it?
I believe so, yeah.
Because it's Paul Schrader who directed
Paul Schrader. Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
I'll have to.
Because I thought to myself, another priest in another William Friedkin movie? What's going on with him? Like, what's his deal? And then I referenced in my mind that podcast with Darren Aronofsky, and he definitely has a God thing going on. So That's true.
I
jumped at.
So why did I get those guys mixed up? Did they ever work together?
I have no idea.
Did Paul Schrader write
I have no
a movie for Friedkin?
I don't know, but maybe it's because of Priest. I don't know. Something to do with,
Maybe it was. I
it's
was thinking Priest, so I said William Friedkin. Wow. So they're just old white dudes. That's pretty much like what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, we all look the same. Yeah, the reason why I immediately went to it because I thought to myself, I've been wanting to see First Reformed, and it's on Redbox now, so it's accessible. And Ethan Hawke, I'm all about him, and he is definitely the front runner. They're talking it is his time to win an acting Oscar. This will be his 4th nomination. So I've been wanting to see it, but it's always one of those things where I know my father won't want to watch it, and he usually likes to watch movies with me, so I have to plan it out just right to where I can rent it because he will want to put it in, and I don't know what's going on in this movie. So I do not want to put on a movie about a priest in front of my very Catholic father. So I need to see this movie. And then when you said William Friedkin, I was like, I'm getting off the podcast and watching it tonight. I'm just going to hide in my room and not tell my dad. But not that Paul Schrader doesn't have anything to do with me wanting to see it even more, but the fact when you mentioned William Friedkin's name, I was like, oh, I got to see it now. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I hate to ruin that for you, but I think I'm just going to go through real quick, like some of the bigger movies that are coming out that are probably not going to be like Oscar whatever-y, but Bohemian Rhapsody with Rami Malek as the titular Bohemian Rhapsody. No, with Rami Malek as the as Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury?
Yeah.
I was like,
all I was doing was looking at Bohemian Rhapsody, and I was like, the Bohemian Rhapsody guy, the lead singer of Queen, Freddie Mercury. And then Fantastic Beasts 2.
Yeah, that looks great.
Yeah, and what was there? There was a couple of The Front Runner with it's about Gary Hart in 1988, and it has Jason Reitman directed. Hugh Jackman and Vera Farmiga are starring in that one. So I don't know. I don't know who is clamoring for that, but I don't know. I guess it's about a scandal in politics. So there's that. Mary Poppins, Aquaman, or I guess it's Mary Poppins Returns specifically, and Aquaman. And I think those are and then the one we haven't talked about, I'm surprised you haven't brought it up yet, is A Star Is Born.
Because I have my lists. We're not on Periscope, so you can't see my list, people. Here are my lists. Those are my lists. Okay. The reason why is because... Okay, here's the reason why. I wanted to talk about certain things first.
Oh.
And then I wanted to talk about how people kind of jump on a bandwagon and start to ride it, and that trailer is great for A Star Is Born. I saw it in the theater. It makes me chill up, tear up. It gives me the chills is basically what I just said there, but kind of connected the two. When she starts singing at that one point in the trailer, it's amazing. So it is not on my list for actor or actress, and it's not on my list for Best Picture, but it is on my list for if Bradley Cooper, which my understanding is he wrote those 2 songs that are in that trailer, they will both be nominated for the Oscar, and he will win the Oscar for Best Song.
Wow.
If those two songs that he sings are beautiful. The one song when he goes up to the microphone and says he sings something about letting the old things go or whatever the lyric is, I wouldn't even attempt to try to sing. First of all, he sounds amazing. Screw him for being able to sing and being good looking and being talented. I hate him on some level, but I seriously am in love with him on other levels. I just get this kind of major jealous thing when people can sing, and he can sing. And then the other song that's playing in the trailer that she eventually sings along with is amazing and sticks out in my head. And I thought to myself, that's going to be the surprise, that they're going to win Golden Globes. They're going to be nominated for Golden Globes, definitely. And Lady Gaga won a Golden Globe for American Horror Story, so she has a history. And Bradley Cooper, I don't know if he's won any of the Golden Globes. He might have won the one for Silver Linings Playbook for Best Comedy, and Daniel Day-Lewis won Best Drama. And then, of course, Bradley Cooper lost to Daniel Day-Lewis for Silver Linings Playbook and Lincoln. But there's something about that movie and that trailer, and I could not put my finger on it. And I thought, it's him and it's her and it's that story, but it's that song. That song that's playing in the background during the trailer is amazing. And if that is him who wrote it, which is my understanding that he had his hand in writing of the music, which also pisses me off that he can do all that too. But that's besides the point. Some people are blessed. Don't be pissed at Bradley. He will be nominated for Best Original Song. And if he's nominated for those two songs, he will win the Oscar. And he will be an Academy Award winner for something no one would have suspected him to have won for. So that's why it's not on any of the lists, because it's literally on its own page all by itself.
Wow.
Bradley Cooper, Best Song.
He'd be kind of like Stanley Kubrick winning an Academy Award, his only Academy Award for Best Visual Effects for 2001: A Space Odyssey.
That makes a little bit more sense, though, because Kubrick is a visual director,
That's
obviously, true. And he is visually inclined. I didn't know Bradley Cooper could sing. I didn't know Bradley Cooper had the kahunas to stand up there and sing with one of the biggest, brightest, strongest pop vocalists of our time and not be scared, because he doesn't look scared at all. And then to direct it on top of it, I hope the movie holds the weight of those two people. I hope that the movie holds up to what it set us up to believe it has in it. I have a little bit of reservations about things like that, because when they are held up so high, it's hard when it doesn't really completely connect. And the screenplay is, it's been done 3 other times before. So it's an oft-told story, and I'm good with the story, but there's something about that damn song, man. I'm telling you, there's something about that song. And if they're nominated for Oscars for their performances, more power to them. But they're definitely going to be nominated for Golden Globes. That's without a shadow of a doubt. And if there are Oscar nominations and the film does go well, good for him. It'd be nice to see him nominated for Best Director. He could be that 5th nomination that nobody's expecting, but everybody's already talking about it. So it has an uphill battle other than that damn song, because that song is beautiful. So what else you got?
I Think We're Alone Now with Peter Dinklage, and it's directed, and I can't remember. I think it's
The Last Man on Earth thing.
Yeah, and I think it's Elle Fanning, but I don't think that's right.
It is right. No, that is right.
Okay, it is Elle Fanning. Okay, just because we were talking about Elle Fanning earlier, but and that's directed by Reed Morano, who did, I think, a bunch of the episodes of Handmaid's Tale, and that is shot very well. So I think I'm interested in seeing how the movie is shot. I've seen a couple trailers, but the trailers are really just pretty much like mini scenes. And it looks like it's going to be kind of a quiet movie, but I do like those kind of like post-apocalyptic type movies. I think those are really
I love
interesting.
those. Yeah.
And then I think one of the most beautiful trailers, like as far as cinematography is concerned, that I've seen for this year is Roma, the new Alfonso Cuarón movie that I know is coming out on Netflix, and I think maybe will be out in theaters. That was the one.
It is.
That was the one that they didn't play at Cannes Film Festival because of the whole Netflix kerfuffle. They like rejected all Netflix movies from playing in any French theaters or something. And but
Why?
It just looks amazing. Well, because they're French. I don't know. Sorry to all of our French listeners, but tweet us and
that
tell
was
us
Josh
why
who
I'm
said
wrong.
that. Let's make this clear. That's Josh who said that, not me.
No, I think that especially the Cannes Film Festival, I'm sure they have a lot of pride in their film festival, and they're probably trying to preserve this kind of a, feeling.
Isn't Netflix a company that makes movies? What's the difference?
It's the difference is it goes back to the, film versus digital thing. It's like, movies are organic and film moves and it changes and and it lives and it breathes. We need to be able to see these movies in a big room with a bunch of people, in a place that's not your house. That's the feeling of cinema
But that's
purists.
the people who go to the south of France for the Cannes Film Festival to see those things. So everybody else is watching them in their house, regardless of whether or not it won the Cannes Film Festival award and then eventually made it to Joe Schmo's house in Alabama. So they should be celebrating. That pisses me off because it just is so not what I'm about. I think any vehicle, any venue, anytime, any place to tell somebody a story that could impact their life and make it better, make it worse, make them see stuff that they've never seen before. There is no reason to cut people off from any form of storytelling at all. For any reason whatsoever. If somebody here in the United States said, I'm decided to have a film festival and nothing but films from Nebraska are going to be in it, people would be like, okay, well, then why is it not in Nebraska? Well, because it's the Oklahoma Film Festival, but only from Nebraska. People would be like, you're crazy. What about Florida films? What about Virginia films? They would be like, why are you cutting yourself off? So this whole discussion, it literally angers me. I do not get that angry now in my life. I'm past the age of getting too angry, but this angers me because it's senseless. It makes no sense to me. And anybody who's involved in the Cannes Film Festival has to be at least old enough to know when VHS DVDs took over and everybody freaked out about that, and VHS took over and everybody freaked out about that, and TV movies started taking over and everybody freaked out about that, and we're all still good. This is just the next evolution of filmmaking. If that means that a TV corporation sponsors a film that can get a movie out there that can stop a person from hurting themselves because they related to something in the film, then why not? And this subject pisses me off so much that I don't feel bad about getting on my soapbox about it because it makes no sense to me at all. But if you remember, 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, when Beasts of No Nation was not allowed to be qualified for the Oscars because it was released on Netflix, although it was going to be released in the theaters first, and they were like, nope, that doesn't qualify, blah, blah, blah. But then now we had last year Mary J. Blige.
Oh, yeah, Mudbound,
Netflix. And so now it's not a thing. So I guess there's growing pains for everything.
Well, and I think the other thing is that this movie specifically, I mean, it's about, Cuarón's making kind of like a autobiographical movie about Mexico City and all of the things that were going on when he was growing up as a child in the 70s, I believe. So, I mean, it's something that maybe a lot of people don't really even know about. I don't know anything about what was going on in Mexico City at that time. So, I mean, and it looks like it's going to be done in an artful way. And so it's educational and artistic, and it's something that the Cannes, audience wasn't able to see. So that's too bad.
Well, let me just state this. I will tell you that Alfonso Cuarón is the front runner on everybody's list to win Best Director for this movie. So,
wow.
There's some poetic justice there.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, it looks great. I mean, I was really impressed by the trailer. So, and then have you seen the picture of Nicole Kidman in Destroyer?
No.
She's like a detective, like a grizzled old detective. And I think it's cult related. It's directed by Karen Kusama, who last did The Invitation, which was also cult related. Yeah, maybe it's not cult related, but I heard somebody say something about that. So, but it's the IMDb description is: a police detective reconnects with people from an undercover assignment in her distant past in order to make peace. So, Sebastian Stan's also in it. Toby Kebbell, Tatiana Maslany from Orphan Black, Bradley Whitford, Scoot McNairy, who's in everything. So yeah, I mean, it looks like a good lineup, and Karen Kusama, she's great. So And I think her husband co-wrote it too, just like with The Invitation. So that's cool. And then last one I'll talk about is Backseat, which is Adam McKay's new movie.
Yeah, I was wondering when you were going to bring that up.
Where Christian Bale once again eats a lot of donuts and becomes a balloon man, and he plays Dick Cheney, and Amy Adams plays Lynn Cheney. Steve Carell's in it as Rumsfeld. You got Sam Rockwell as George W. Bush. This is gonna be crazy. So yeah, it's Tyler Perry is Colin Powell. What the heck? This is the first time Bill Camp's in it. He's playing Gerald Ford. This is insane. Wow.
And there's a
That will
lot of
be
talk about
interesting.
Oscar nominations all the way around.
Yeah.
It's
That's what it looks like.
Well, there's only a few on my list really quick I'll go over. Viola Davis for this movie called Widows. I don't know much about it, but they're talking about her.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Widows. I had that on my list too. I guess I didn't say it.
Is that the Steve
that's
McQueen?
Steve McQueen.
Yeah. That looks interesting. Glenn Close could be finally an Oscar winner for this film called The Wife. They keep talking about her, and she's been nominated 6 times. I believe she's the most nominated living actress or living actor who's been nominated the most and never won. Living, that is. So Glenn Close, The Wife, it looks devastating. Have you seen the trailer for that? It looks incredible.
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it looks really, really good. And we talked about Toni Collette. We talked about Emily Blunt. There's nobody else on the acting list that we haven't talked about, I don't think. So I'm going to flip over to director. There's talk about Adam McKay, of course, for I thought it's Backstreet. That's why I was looking up the wrong title. Damien Chazelle, we've talked about. Barry Jenkins, we talked about. Yorgos Lanthimos, we've talked about. Spike Lee, we have not talked about. People are digging on his latest movie.
Yeah, we saw it. Steph and I saw it.
Did you?
BlacKkKlansman.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I like
it. It
him.
was good. I mean, it's got a punch at the end, and you don't really expect it, but yeah, it's the way that he decided to tell the story, which is based on a true story. The way that he decided to tell the story is engaging, and I'm not the biggest Spike Lee fan. Like he makes bold cinematic choices and they don't land with me sometimes, and there were a few scenes in here that just didn't land with me, but overall it was an affecting movie. And you know, there are definitely some digs at the current administration in the movie, but you know, you can expect that. So yeah, it's
well, things that are timely
good.
are great, but you know, people worry about 10, 20, 15, 50 years from now whether or not a film, the topical references matter.
Yeah, I think the movie itself, if somebody was to see it 20 years from now, maybe those particular jokes wouldn't land because the person wouldn't know the context, who's seeing it 20 or 30 years from now. But the story that it's telling is worth it. And even though we can take even though we can see parallels to today, right now, when watching it, just taking it on its face is still a worthwhile thing. So yeah.
Well, this is what I'll say. I'm all about Spike Lee. I've always liked him. I've seen almost every one of his films in the theater. And he has not been nominated for the Oscar for Best Director. I'm not saying that's a reason to nominate him for Best Director, but I definitely think he should have been nominated for Do the Right Thing. That's a missed nomination. It goes on my list of missed nominations. He was nominated for Screenplay for Do the Right Thing, which is a great nomination, did not win. But he has never been nominated for Best Director. And this film seems to be pushing people in that way, in the best possible way. I don't mean to use push as a bad term, but people are seeing him in a different light because of it. There's controversy behind this film because of the truth of it. The fiction, I can't say the word, the reality versus, yes, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't say that. I guess there's a word, a podcast that I can't say. That's that one for today. Anyway, but everybody's like, oh, the controversy is going to hurt his chances. I'm like, what Spike Lee movie has not opened without some form of stupid, drummed up controversy that has nothing to do, don't make me cuss again, has nothing to do with the actual film. I mean, it's ridiculous. This man has been feathered with controversy that he just doesn't deserve most of his career. Just go see the film. Tell me what you thought about the film. That's like saying, yes, there are other film directors in history that have gotten a lot of slack about their liberties with the truth. JFK, Oliver Stone, Born on the 4th of July, Oliver Stone. There's filmmakers that just bend the truth for their story-making purposes. If he was making a documentary, if he was making a TV series that was based on facts, that would be something different. If he was making a film that he said was accurate to the actual events, that would be different. He made a story based on what he wanted to tell and how he wanted to tell the story. I've not seen the film yet. I don't know the controversy. I don't know the differences. After I see the film, I'll delve into that so I can understand the differences, so I can see both sides of it, or at least understand what both sides are seeing. But that brings me to my next possible nominee, because he is part of this controversy. Boots Riley has come out and stated that he has problems with Spike Lee's new movie because of the truth and what he chose to do and how he chose to do it. I don't know what's truthful or what's not. For me, it's not. It's irregardless for these two gentlemen to be on this list. For me, it's, I'm a little sorry I even brought up the controversy in order to introduce Boots Riley, but that's where that had to lead, because it is Boots Riley who has made the biggest voice behind this thing. And like I said, after I see Black Klansman, I will definitely delve into what the two sides are and find out. But here's the last thing that I'll talk about, because we've talked about almost everything on my list, maybe not in exact order, but somewhat mentioned each person so far, which is pretty cool that people that you were talking about happen to be on the same list, but I guess that's what's in the air right now. But Sorry to Bother You should be nominated for original screenplay.
Do you think it will be, though?
You know what? Here's the thing. I will say this. It is recorded, so we can look back and say, I did say this. You said something about Yorgos Lanthimos not ever being nominated. And I said, if he ever had a chance, The Lobster could be it. And you're like, for what? Original screenplay? The Academy's not going to look at that as an original screenplay. And history now has said that that is what happened. He was nominated for original screenplay. And then when we did the podcast on the Oscar prediction, you were like, there's no way he's going to win. Okay, you were right. But the possibility was there. And sometimes in these categories, these films, capital T, capital H, capital E, capital S, capital E, these films seem to come out with Oscars because they are not what is expected to win. People are so shocked by it. But once they're in the running, people go see them. It's undeniable that these are great movies. So if they are nominated for the Oscar, then they could possibly win. And a lot of times they do. And these odd films, odd for lack of a better term, meaning outside the status quo, can win. And I think if people saw this film, they would nominate it, because it is the densest, most fulfilling script I've heard and seen in a long time, especially in this year so far. Yeah. He throws everything in this movie, and he makes a point about everything, and they all have their point. He brings something up, he reiterates it, then he makes a point about it, and he gets it in there. And to be able to do that the way that he did it, and the tone and the cadence and the rhythm, which is cadence, of the film, then yes, it should be nominated. Will it be nominated? Who knows? But there's always one that seems to show up, and most people are like, what's that? What? The Lobster's prime example, Yeah. So is it possible? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? I'm going to say yes, just so I can brag if it does.
That would be awesome. I do hope that it happens. I hope that, the Academy acknowledges the movie in some way, and that would be a great way to acknowledge it, because it is. I mean, it's Boots Riley's film. It's from him, and it's not only his writing but also the enacting of that vision that are all together make it what it is, along with the performances of Lakeith Stanfield and Tessa Thompson and all those other all those other actors. I mean, yeah, I think that would be awesome if it got. I just don't. I mean, I just feel like it doesn't seem like it's definitely not an Oscar baity movie. It's kind of the opposite. So that'd be really awesome. So, and that's probably a good place to tighten this up and finish her up.
Well, I want to say one last thing before we end.
I'll allow it.
Oh, thank you very much. And by the way, what you just said about Sorry to Bother You is almost identical to what you said about The Lobster. I'm just saying. So that puts it even much more in contention than anything else. I just want to mention really quick that I saw Ready Player One again, and it holds up. It's fantastic. It's one of the best movies of the year. I do want to mention that our top 10 list of films for this year is going to be interesting, because there's already 3 or 4 that are on my list already, and normally they don't start to become on my list until about October, and we haven't even gotten even close to Oscar time, and there's going to be a whole bunch more. This is going to be an interesting year. We might have to do a top 10 plus 5. I'm not sure, because it's going to be an interesting year, but I would like to see Ready Player One take some technical awards, and I would like to see it if this is part of the popular vote. If this is, I'm not sure what they're going to do with that, but I would like to see that film on that list. And if Spielberg shows up as Best Director, which he has a tendency to just show up because he makes great movies at the last minute, The Post, who knew? Tons of things he's shown up. War Horse he showed up for, which I think was Best Picture, not Director. But anyway, it would be nice to see a really entertaining, well-told story nominated for Best Picture or Best Director. And it's Spielberg, so it could happen. I just had to say something about Ready Player One because, we talked about all this intense art, and I think that there's something to be said about a fulfilling movie. I watched it with my father. He was like, "What's an avatar?" I don't know how to explain to 81-year-old what an avatar is. So I just explained, virtual reality, and he's like, "What?" And then in 10 minutes he got it, and 45 minutes into it, he's like, "This is great. Are they going to get the rest of the keys?" And I was like, "I don't know, Dad." He was like, "That guy, I don't like that guy," talking about Ben Mendelsohn. So it's just one of those movies that completely works on a bunch of different levels. So that might be scoffed at by some Oscar scholars, but those movies are important. And if that's what the popular vote movie is for, then I'm all about it.
Well, cool. I will just mention before we go that we got a great note from Eric, and he recommended that we see American Animals. You remember that movie came out a while ago? It just came out on rental, like Redbox and all that stuff. So that was one of the movies that was bought by MoviePass, and then they released it in the theaters. And it's like a heist movie with a bunch of guys. I guess they're not necessarily kids, like maybe in their early 20s, trying to steal a book of birds that's supposed to be worth millions and millions of dollars. And it looks well done. And he recommended it. And so, I mean, that's
Evan Peters and Dowd's in it. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. And Dowd, that's right. And Dowd's in it. So we should probably take a look at that at some point.
Oh, what's his name's in it too? Barry Cogan's in it.
Yes. So our friend from Killing of a Sacred Deer. So anyway, we should probably put that on the list down the line. And thanks to Eric for bringing that up to us. But you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can tweet us at actorengineer, and you can go to facebook.com/actorandengineer, and you can give us a review on iTunes. That really helps out a lot. 5 stars are awesome if you want to do that. So I just changed our feed so that you can now get all of our podcast and get all 199 of our podcasts. So we'll see you next week.